From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, May 2nd, 2017 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. This is our PM session. I'm going to ask Mark Nations, our County Counsel, to report on actions taken in closed session today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As to items 35, 36, 37, 39, and 40, those closed sessions were all held. There was no reportable action on any of them. As to item 38, the Daniel Williams versus County of Kern Workers' Compensation Appeals Board case number ADJ 103466752. By unanimous vote, your board approved settlement authority by way of stipulations with request for award carrying a total monetary value of $71,587.80 and authorize the auditor controller to issue warrants as requested by my office and authorize my office to present the proposed settlement to the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board and to execute all necessary closing documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nations. If you'd like to follow along with our agenda today, they are available at the two tables near the doors, and we're going to begin with the consent agenda. All items listed with a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. And so at this time, I'm going to read the consent agenda. Starting on page 2 of the PM session, items 3 through 6 are on consent. On page 3, items 7 through 14 are on consent. On page 4, all items 15 through 24 are on consent. And that concludes the consent agenda. So I'll ask if there are any members of the audience that would like to make comment on the consent agenda.
Good afternoon. My name is Clark Farr.
Which is the item, Mr. Farr?
Oh, I'm sorry. Item number 9.
Okay, item number 9. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to make comment on the consent agenda? 14. Okay, so we have 9 and 14. Okay, Mr. Farr, please proceed.
I would request that item number 9 be pulled from consent agenda and postponed for later consideration after it is rewritten. It deals with the grand jury report on code compliance. I take great issue with items with responses to number 1 and number 2. If I may just briefly read item number 1, what the grand jury had. In addition to administering applicable codes through complaints, code compliance should routinely seek to identify health and safety hazards in areas for which many complaints are received. Basic. The response misses the mark. It misses it like it isn't even shooting in the right direction. This is not about weeds in the front lawn, cars parked too long, somebody parked their 18-wheeler in the street. This is about public health and safety, and I would point directly to the floodplain management ordinance, section 17.48 of the building code. It mandates through your taking in to get flood insurance in the community, you are required to get to pass that ordinance. FEMA expects mandatory enforcement, not just compliance. Compliance is a given. Enforcement is mandatory. The question arises when we deal with the floodplain management ordinance, how many people in this community, including yourselves, added to that number. Even know when you're looking at a violation of the floodplain management ordinance. I can point out levees, channels, all kinds of neat stuff, walls that obstruct within the floodplain. But the common person does not know, cannot know, would not know, and therefore can't make a complaint. I do, I have, and they've gone unanswered, which gets me to number 2 later. The issue comes in, though, that that there are aspects to your ordinance code that mandate experts, your code compliance staff, to go out and notify the offending parties of the fact that they need to come within compliance. You should not leave that up to the common man to do that. They are not prepared for that. Very few people are. With regards to number 2, unresolved complaints received months or years ago for which there is no ongoing activity should be examined quarterly for further action or close out. I have filed complaints with regards to, at the time, new levies 2 years ago. The only thing that was ever done by code compliance was they sent out a basic letter that said, hey, you know, maybe if you could sometime fix this. That's it. Nothing else ever happened. Nothing else ever will happen. This is wrong. The code compliance with regards to, once again, floodplain management and the floodplain management ordinance places the county at risk of losing $500,000 a year in savings to your constituents, all 5 of you, not just Lamont, within the floodplain. They get a 15% discount over the normal cost of insurance because the county administers the ordinance as it is supposed to be administered, which means that it is not just compliance, but you go the extra step and go out, and when you see a problem, you act on that problem. That automatically goes away. One simple complaint up the food chain to the Fed, you guys are out of the community rating system, your rates all go up 15%, costing your public $500,000 a year that pretty much just goes to pay for damages in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. That shouldn't happen. In addition, it places the community at risk of being placed on probation, which means you get an extra boost. Everybody who has flood insurance in the unincorporated area of Kern County gets an extra boost on the cost of their insurance. If nothing is done then, you go all the way to being suspended, which means no development in Roseman, no development in Inyokern, no development in the South Lake area of Lake Isabella, no development in along Cuddy Creek in Fraser Park, Lebec, Lake of the Woods, no development in Ford City. All of those areas are floodplain. No development in Lamont, weed patch. It all stops because they will not be able to get any flood insurance. And if you can't get flood insurance, you can't get a federally backed home loan. So who's going to buy homes? In addition, to add to that, most of your damages are typically after a disaster are paid for by public assistance dollars. Public assistance dollars, my understanding, you have to be in good standing in the National Flood Insurance Program. That doesn't mean you're on probation. That means you're in good standing. Which means if there happens to be a flood after you're found to be out of compliance and on probation, those millions, tens of millions of dollars that you get under a disaster are not available from the federal government. So you gamble every time. And I would also note, and I will remind you again, Vivian Robinson, January 5th of this year was her last day on earth, and it was directly the result of a lack of code compliance on issues that they were aware of. And with that, I'm going to go sit down. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Farr, before you leave, I just want to ask you once again, so you're asking that this item be pulled, postponed, and rewritten. Very good.
To address the fact that it isn't just weird little things.
Understood. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that we were clear on what it was
That's
you
what
requested.
my request, yes.
Okay, Mr. Fox, come on up. Good afternoon. Please state your name.
I'm Dennis Fox, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. That is an interesting grand jury report, and it is a problem. But I wanted to talk to you about 14. I have a question, who's getting the trees in that? It's getting a grant for the trees. And General Services, I was just wondering if that happens to be for parks or for what?
Okay.
And just bring up something, so I don't have to come back. Getting the trees, not just for parks, if you get something that's more local and doesn't take all that much work and trimming and water. The other one is planting trees after, as we talked, and Chief Moon didn't know who it was for either.
Okay.
If we take the trees are, if you get the clear-cut areas and the burned-over areas, if you don't replant them, you're going to get up with that'll be the original cost of, and the problem for the floods of Lamont. When you have no vegetation, that's when you get the mud flows and that. I would like to mention to you something your constituents might like to know. That is that the California Department of Fish and Game, in addition to, talking about the bullets, they do have funding on private lands for habitat improvement, which some of the people might like to go for. I know Tejon Ranch gets quite a bit chunk. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Okay, this item is under, that item is under County Administrative Office. Mr. Alsop, do you have any response to the question as far as where, I think it was where the trees are going?
I don't right now, Mr. Chairman, but I could talk with our general services.
Okay.
We do, I think Jeff is here, and maybe if he wants to talk with Mr.
Okay, there he
Fox
is. Okay,
about
thank
that,
you.
or,
I was scanning the room for somebody from General Services, and I didn't see Jeff
yeah.
back there. Okay, very good. If you could please introduce yourself, Jeff.
Jeffrey Hill, Assistant County Administrative Officer for General Services. The item before you is about trees in many, many parks in Kern County. I don't have a list of all of the parks that these trees are going to be planted in, but they are, in order for us to pass the first level of granting, they're in disadvantaged areas of the county of Kern. They're in areas where tree cover will be beneficial. There'll be drought-tolerant trees. There'll be trees very appropriate for the locations in which they're planted.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Hill. I was having a little trouble opening it up, and so this is to replace trees that have been lost throughout the years and augment existing trees within the county parks and facilities. So thank you so much. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to ask if there are any other members of the public that would like to speak to the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board. There was a request to pull item 9. I think 14, we received our answer on that. I'm going to ask Mr. Fenton or Mr. Pope if you would like to speak to that request on item 9 on the grand jury report. And then we can determine if we'd like to pull it and continue it. Supervisor Perez would like to make a comment before you gentlemen proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. My staff's been following this matter very closely. I understand we'll be having a discussion next week on the very issues that are real and legitimate that Mr. Farr has raised, but it appears as though next week may be the better time to have that full-scale discussion. So I'm not sure if we've had an opportunity to communicate that to Mr. Farr, but that is my understanding based on my staff's analysis, and so I'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we would concur with Supervisor Perez that this week was different than the flood issues in Lamont and the grand jury issues on the flood issues in Lamont. We were going to be, next week, would be more prepared to speak to the issues that he brought forward.
Okay, so what specifically regarding his request to have it pulled and have, it, at the very least, have those responses reanalyzed? Or is your recommendation to go forward with this?
Our recommendation, Mr.
Response.
Chairman, is that we'd move forward on this item, and next week there will be a full item exactly on the topic that he's talking about.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'll now turn to members of the board. Do we have any requests to pull any items, or do I have a motion?
Motion on consent?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second on the full consent agenda. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
So, Mr. Farr, hopefully you're able to join us again next week for that discussion.
It is a separate issue.
Okay. Thank you. I'd suggest that
They
you,
say it isn't, but it is exactly a separate issue.
okay.
Staff's going to talk to Mr. Farr.
Okay, staff is going to talk to you right now, and then I'm sure Supervisor Perez and her staff are available as well. Very good. Okay, so that takes us back to page 2 on our agenda. And this is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. So I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make a public presentation. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Chris Bunyan. I'm a resident of Costa Mesa, California.
Hey, could you spell your name, please?
Yeah. B as in boy, U-N-Y-A-N. My point of my trip up here today is to discuss with the board and also to notify board members and county council of the intent of a lawsuit to be filed against the county for the failure to maintain a county-owned water sump that is in District 1. Since 2007, residents have tried to work with code compliance and also roads in preventing a resident whose property abuts directly up against this county water sump, and he has taken it over for his own full enjoyment and easement. Basketball courts, work trucks, work yards, and other materials have been permanently stored out there. When the asphalt was laid in the 1970s, it was a thin aggregate that wasn't intended for, we would say, an average of 6 daily vehicle trips. What's happened is the asphalt has become degraded, and also he put a basketball court in a few years ago, and that was put on notice to county roads and code compliance. Now, could you imagine the potential for a personal injury lawsuit if somebody was to come out there and trip and fall on that property? His logic is he feels that since the property is abutted against his, it's his property. We've tried to communicate with him. I know code compliance has come out sometimes. We even had a meeting as far back as 2009 with Supervisor McQuinston, Charles Lackey, and a field rep named Kimberly Mullins. Last week, we asked that parking signs be placed, which they did come out, roads came out and placed the signs up. While we think that's going to be a deterrent, we don't feel it's going to be the deterrent. So stakeholders, myself and my parents live out in that area, by the way. We're trying to work creatively with county roads. Joshua Champlin proposed an idea to actually bring the setback to be about 2 feet away from the sidewalk to eliminate the problem permanently. So we are open to any kind of suggestions or thoughts the county would have to avoid any sort of litigation on this. Thank you.
Mr. Bunyan, thank you very much. I'll ask Supervisor Gleason if he would like to respond or make a referral to staff.
Yes. I need some help here, Mr. Pope. Do you have any idea what's going on here?
Through the chair to Supervisor Gleason, our people have looked at this on numerous occasions, and I was just brought aware of it this morning. And what we have is a typical sump in an urban neighborhood that has pavement around the perimeter between the road and the fence. and apparently neighbors are using it, utilizing that.
One neighbor, sir.
One neighbor is utilizing it. And we have recently put up no parking signs, I think, in an effort to deter that. But otherwise, it's a pretty normal situation.
Okay, how about this? How about we engage in a conversation, update our conversation, understand what your thoughts are, understand what our capabilities are, and see if we can come to some type of amenable solution. Would that satisfy?
Fantastic.
Okay, so what do I need to do? Do I need to make a referral or?
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Bunyan, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Would anyone else like to make a presentation? Hi, Ms. Oviatt.
I apologize, this is a little off agenda, Lorelei Obiat, but Chairman, you wanted to make a comment on the
and I will.
Terrigen?
Yeah, I
Okay,
will. I was
thank
going to
you.
do it under board member announcements or
Right,
reports.
thank you.
Thank you, but appreciate the reminder. You got to keep your eye on me. Very good. Okay, any other public presentations? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on then to board member announcements or reports.
Yes, sir.
And Supervisor Gleason, I know that you have a presentation you'd like to make.
Do I need a motion on this presentation? I have a presentation of Ms. Tamsey, if you'd come on down.
So, and Mr. Tamsey is it correct, Grand Marshal of the Delano Cinco de Mayo Parade? All right, come on down, Mr. Tamsey.
You can swing around. If there'd be a better picture for you, you can go right there. That Sasha is going to help you out. It's an honor to be here. You know, the reason this is an honor is Mr. Tamsey this isn't just a normal award. Jay is a vibrant, vital, and a full participant in Kern County and its activities from no matter what we do. In District 1, I'll see him just about everywhere, whether that's Delano, Chatham. I can't get rid of the guy. He's always engaged. He's passionate about his community. He is a wonderful representative of the goodwill that Kern County tries to bring to its neighbors and its community, and he is a perfect person to be recognized for being selected as the Grand Marshal of the 2017 Delano Cinco de Mayo Fiesta, and for exemplary public service, the civic contributions to the community in Kern County. Jay, I'm so thrilled that you're doing this and you're taking this on for us. I'm so happy that you're a member, our leader in our community. Thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay.
Appreciate it.
Please.
Oh,
No, yeah, take a seat. Okay.
oh.
We have some pictures.
Cool.
Sure.
Supervisor, do you want to get,
Sure, we
You
got
get one
right
for-
there. Holy mackerel,
yeah,
you're
get
a
one.
popular guy, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason and the chair of the board and Board of Supervisors. I'm very humbled to be this year's Grand Marshal for 2017. Delano's festival is this weekend, May 4th through the 7th. Normally, when I was called and I was asked by the mayor of Delano if I would receive this, normally Grand Marshals are 83. I'm 38. So I was pretty shocked, but I'm very honored and I'm very privileged to represent not only my Hispanic Chamber organization, my Hispanic community, and my parents, but also the community and the citizens of Delano and Kern County as well. So thank you so much to all of you, and I hope you guys can join us for the dinner on Thursday. And if not, enjoy the weather here in Bakersfield.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
thank you. Congratulations, thank you so much. And as Ms. Oviatt had mentioned, I did want to bring everybody's attention to an item that we approved on the consent agenda. The community of Mojave, as a project that the county has sponsored to do some very significant and beautiful improvements to K Street. And we've used some community development block grant funding as well as Renew Biz dollars, which is a pot of money that's for enhancement of some of our county infrastructure to go along with some of the revitalization efforts that the local businesses in that downtown corridor have been doing. One of the issues that we have in Mojave, because I will say in my opinion, is because we have a lot of out-of-town property owners, it's been very difficult to have assessments increased for street lighting when costs go up. And so the answer, unfortunately, has been if the property owners don't vote to increase the assessment, then we pull out lights until the fund comes into balance. This has caused a removal, I think, about 90 lights throughout the community of Mojave. It was very dark and frankly unsafe because of that. And so what we approved on item number 3 was a donation from Terrigen, which is one of our renewable energy companies that has made tremendous investments in Kern County. They donated $160,000 to provide solar streetlights for that entire K Street project. And so I just wanted to mention that and to thank them for their contributions to our community in the form of the investment for their energy projects, which obviously create jobs and property base for us, but also property tax base for us, but also for this contribution, which I think will go a long way to improving the beauty of the area and also the safety. So thank you to Terrigen and thank you to board members for indulging me. And so with that, I'd like to move on. I think that's the end of our agenda. All the other items were approved on consent. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, May 9th at 9 a.m.
So moved.
We are adjourned.